Admiral Jessica Hayes stood motionless before the sprawling holographic display, her weathered features illuminated by the pulsing red warning indicators. The massive command center of the Galactic Council's defense network hub, usually a model of efficient calm, had erupted into barely controlled chaos. "Ma'am, the vessel just passed through another sensor net. It's not making any sense." Lieutenant Marcus Rodriguez's fingers danced across his console, bringing up conflicting readings that scattered across the main display. One array shows it heavily armed, another reads it as a civilian transport, and a third can't detect it at all. Hayes leaned forward, her gray eyes narrowing as she studied the contradictory data streams. 27 years in the Council's defense force, and she'd never seen anything like this. The human warship, if it could even be called that, defied every classification protocol in their database. "What's the closest visual confirmation we have?" she demanded, straightening her midnight blue uniform with an unconscious gesture that betrayed her mounting tension. Commander Sarah Walsh, her tactical officer, projected a new image onto the central display. "This footage is from Outpost Delta 9, captured 3 hours ago." The hologram showed a sleek vessel, its hull a shifting pattern of blacks and grays that seemed to absorb and redirect light in impossible ways. Its design was unlike anything in Council records. No clear weapons ports, no standard engine configuration, just smooth curves and angles that hurt the eyes if you stared too long. "They're broadcasting again," Rodriguez announced, his voice tight with concern. A deep, confident voice filled the command center. "This is Captain Michael Drake of the Earth vessel Stellar Phantom. Your barriers mean nothing. Your weapons mean less. We're coming through." Hayes felt a chill run down her spine. The voice carried no malice, no aggression, just absolute certainty. "Open a channel," she ordered. "All frequencies, full spectrum." "Channel open, Admiral." Hayes squared her shoulders. "Captain Drake, this is Admiral Jessica Hayes of the Galactic Council Defense Force. Your vessel is approaching restricted space. Alter course immediately, or we will be forced to—" "To what, Admiral?" Drake's response was immediate, almost amused. "To deploy the same defensive systems we helped design. To activate the quantum barriers that your scientists still don't fully understand. We've been watching, learning, and improving upon every technology you've so proudly displayed." The command center fell silent. Hayes felt her throat tighten as the implications sank in. Impossible. Humanity was denied access to Council technology 30 years ago. You were classified as a protected species, restricted to our own solar system. Drake chuckled. "Admiral, has it ever occurred to the Council that perhaps we accepted that classification because it meant you'd stop paying attention to us? That maybe, just maybe, humanity works best when underestimated." New alerts flashed across the display. Rodriguez's hands trembled slightly as he reported, "Admiral, we're detecting energy signatures. The ship is releasing something. Hundreds of small objects spreading out across all approach vectors." Walsh's tactical analysis appeared in floating windows around the main display. They appear to be probes or drones, but the design. She paused, swallowing hard. They're incorporating technologies from at least 7 different Council species, technologies that should never have been combined. Hayes watched as the swarm of devices expanded, creating a web of interconnected fields that her sensors couldn't penetrate. The human vessel sat at the center of this elaborate pattern, a dark promise of more surprises to come. "Captain Drake," she tried one last time, "whatever your intention, this act of aggression." "Aggression?" Drake's voice was softer now, almost sympathetic. "Admiral Hayes, if this were an attack, you would never have seen us coming. No, this is something far more important. A demonstration. A wake-up call. Your Council has grown complacent, believing their technological superiority makes them unassailable. We're here to remind you that innovation doesn't bow to authority." The human ship's drones suddenly pulsed in perfect synchronization, creating a cascading wave of energy that swept through the Council's outer defense grid like it wasn't there. Years of carefully layered security measures, bypassed in seconds. Hayes watched the impossible become reality before her eyes and remembered something her grandfather once told her about humanity's brief visit to their world. They smiled too much for a primitive species, like they knew something we didn't. Now she understood why. Thomas Richardson adjusted his collar for the 100th time, trying to ignore the suffocating grandeur of the Council's great chamber. 30 years ago, this moment had seemed like humanity's greatest triumph. First contact with the Galactic Council, a chance to join the interstellar community. Now, the memory burned like acid in his throat. Ambassador Richardson. The crystalline voice of Council Representative Zixtal echoed through the chamber, each word dripping with manufactured benevolence. We have reviewed Earth's petition for full membership status. Your achievements are quaint for such a young species. The chamber's floating platforms held delegates from 300 species, all watching with varying degrees of amusement as humanity's dreams were systematically dismantled. Richardson gripped the podium, his knuckles white against the polished surface. Quaint. He struggled to keep his voice level. We've mastered faster-than-light travel independently. We've colonized our solar system, developed quantum computing, cured most genetic diseases. Using borrowed knowledge, interrupted Delegate Mournville, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with smug satisfaction. Our probes have been visiting Earth for centuries. Your species simply reverse-engineered what you found. Quite clever, for primitives. Richardson felt his diplomatic mask slipping. Behind him, Dr. Eleanor Matthews, Earth's leading genotechnologist, cleared her throat softly, a warning to stay calm. But how could he remain calm when humanity's future was being decided by beings who saw them as little more than clever pets? The Council proposes, Zixtal continued, manifesting a glowing document in the air, to classify Earth as a protected species. Grade 3. You will be restricted to your solar system for the next century, with supervised technological development. For your own protection, of course. The patronizing smile that accompanied those words would haunt Richardson's dreams for years to come. He looked down at his briefing pad, at the carefully prepared speeches and proposals that now seemed hopelessly naive. And if we refuse this protection? Dr. Matthews stepped forward, her voice carrying an edge that made several delegates shift uncomfortably. Zixtal's smile didn't waver. My dear, you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The Council has seen too many young species destroy themselves with technologies they weren't ready to handle. We're offering you guidance, wisdom earned through millennia of what? Richardson cut in, his patience finally shattering. Of stagnation. We've studied your technological progress reports. The Council hasn't produced a truly revolutionary innovation in over 3 centuries. You don't guide species. You control them, limit them, turn them into copies of yourselves. A murmur of displeasure rippled through the chamber. Delegate Mournville's tendrils darkened with anger. You dare? Yes, I dare. Richardson straightened to his full height, looking each council member in the eye. Humanity didn't come here begging for scraps from your table. We came offering partnership, innovation, new perspectives. But you're too afraid of change to recognize an opportunity when it's standing right in front of you. Perhaps, Zixtal's voice turned cold, in another century or two, your species might be ready for basic space travel rights. Until then, accept your place in the natural order. Richardson gathered his documents slowly, deliberately. When he looked up again, his smile mirrored Zixtal's earlier expression, gentle, patronizing, and filled with secrets. We'll see who's primitive when the time comes. Humanity accepts your decision, with one condition. Write it down. Record this moment, so that in the years to come, you'll remember exactly why we stopped asking for permission. As Richardson and Matthews walked out of the great chamber, their footsteps echoing on the crystalline floor, the council representatives exchanged amused glances. None of them noticed Dr. Matthews discreetly placing her hand against a wall panel, or the microscopic nanoprobes that transferred from her palm into the Council's central database. Humanity had learned long ago that the best way to change the rules was to understand them first. The Council had just given them all the time in the world to do exactly that. "They'll never see us coming," Matthews whispered as the chamber doors closed behind them. Richardson nodded, already composing his report to Earth's unified government. "No," he agreed, "they won't. And that's exactly how we want it." Lieutenant Amanda Foster's fingers hovered over the tracking station's emergency protocols as 7 identical warships materialized across the Centauri Belt's defensive grid. Each vessel moved with impossible precision, their hulls rippling with patterns that seemed to drink in the light from nearby stars. "Status report," she barked, watching as her elite tracking team scrambled to make sense of the multiplying signals. "Lieutenant, energy signatures are. They're completely inconsistent," Senior Officer Jack Reynolds reported, his face bathed in the glow of rapidly changing data streams. "Each copy is broadcasting different power levels, different weapon configurations. It's like they're deliberately contradicting our classification protocols." The main display showed the spreading formation of human vessels, or perhaps just incredibly convincing projections, as they wove through the asteroid fields that marked the edge of Council space. Foster had trained on this system for 15 years, and she'd never seen anything move quite like these ships. "Launch the probe drones," she ordered, activating the station's quantum-linked defense network. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know which one's real." The station's automated systems responded instantly, releasing a swarm of sophisticated scanning devices. Each probe was equipped with the Council's most advanced detection technology, capable of piercing any known stealth system. "Ma'am," Reynolds's voice cracked slightly. "The probes, they're all reporting different results. Ship 1 appears to be a heavy cruiser. Ship 2 reads as a civilian transport. Ship 3 isn't registering at all. And Ship 4, he trailed off, staring at his console in disbelief. "Spit it out, Reynolds." "Ship 4 appears to be made entirely of crystallized light." Foster felt a headache building behind her eyes. "That's impossible. Nothing can." "Lieutenant," another technician, Sarah Martinez, cut in. "They're responding to the probes." The main display shifted, showing real-time footage from multiple angles. One of the human vessels simply absorbed an approaching probe, its hull rippling like liquid metal. Another reflected the probe's scanning beam, creating a cascade of sensor ghosts that filled nearby space. A third ship seemed to catch the probe's energy signature and transform it into a spectacular display of colored light that danced across the asteroid field. "Are they showing off?" Martinez whispered. Foster's tactical training screamed that this was wrong. Ships couldn't do this. Technology couldn't do this. Yet the evidence was playing out before her eyes in 7-part harmony. "Send the warning shots," she commanded, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her gut. "Standard pattern, maximum dispersion." The station's defense batteries came online, launching precisely calculated bursts of energy designed to establish a clear boundary line. It was a universal signal, recognized by every spacefaring species. "Come no closer." The human ships responded in perfect synchronization, but each in a uniquely impossible way. The first vessel caught the energy burst like a ball, spinning it into a tight orbit before letting it dissipate harmlessly. The second split the burst into a precise grid pattern that mapped the nearby asteroid field. The third, "They're using our own weapons fire to analyze our defense capabilities," Foster realized, watching as each ship demonstrated a different way to neutralize, redirect, or transform the station's supposedly unstoppable energy weapons. "Lieutenant," Reynolds called out, his voice tight with tension, "we're receiving a transmission. Text only, broadcasting on all frequencies." The message appeared on every screen in the tracking station. "Thank you for the warm welcome. Your defensive capabilities have been noted, categorized, and archived. For future reference, Warning shots are unnecessary. We already know exactly what your weapons can and cannot do. Proceeding on schedule. Respectfully, Captain Drake. Foster stared at the message, then at the 7 ships still moving with perfect coordination through her defense grid. Years of training, countless hours studying every known form of space combat, and none of it had prepared her for this moment. Orders, Lieutenant, Martins asked quietly. Foster watched as the human vessels began their next maneuver, each one executing a different yet equally impossible trajectory through space. Log everything, she replied. And pray we're recording history, not an invasion. Commander James Wildcard Wilson lounged in his captain's chair aboard the Stellar Phantom, boots propped on a console that would have given Council engineers nightmares. The holographic display showed the approaching Council defense fleet. 50 ships in perfect formation, all controlled by their most advanced combat intelligence. They really love their symmetry, don't they? He grinned at his tactical officer, Lieutenant Emma Reeves. Let's give them something to calculate. Reeves returned the smile, her fingers already dancing across her neural-linked interface. Ready to initiate Chaos Protocol, Commander. Which flavor would you prefer? Lady's choice. Make it memorable. The Stellar Phantom's external speakers crackled to life, broadcasting the opening riffs of AC/DC's Thunderstruck across all frequencies. Simultaneously, what appeared to be standard-issue missiles launched from their forward base. Council fleet is responding exactly as expected, reported Navigation Officer Peter Santos. Their combat systems are calculating missile trajectories and failing spectacularly. The missiles suddenly split apart mid-flight, each one fracturing into thousands of microscopic drones. The swarm scattered in all directions, creating ever-shifting geometric patterns that defied prediction algorithms. Their quantum prediction matrix is trying to establish a pattern, Reeves announced, suppressing a laugh. Should we show them what happens when you try to box in human creativity? Wilson nodded, sensing his neural interface with the ship's primary systems. Execute Operation Symphony. The micro-drone swarm began moving in perfect rhythm with the music, creating defensive patterns based on the drum solos and guitar riffs. Each beat triggered a new formation. Each chord progression shifted their energy signatures. The Council's combat intelligence, programmed to identify logical patterns and counter them, began showing signs of computational distress. They're launching their primary weapon systems, Santos reported, attempting to establish a targeting lock, and failing. The drones are reflecting their scanning beams in time with the chorus. Wilson watched as the Council fleet's perfect formation began to waver. Their ships, guided by artificial precision, couldn't adapt to combat algorithms based on human music. Each attempt to predict the Phantom's next move was met with a new impossible pattern, a dance of technology and creativity that no machine could anticipate. Incoming transmission from the Council flagship, Communications Officer Lisa Chen announced. Text only. They're demanding we explain how we're controlling the drone swarm without a central command network. Send them the sheet music, Wilson replied with a wink, complete with guitar tabs. The Council's response came in the form of a massive energy burst designed to disrupt any known control system. The drone swarm responded by absorbing the energy and using it to create a spectacular light show, transforming the battlefield into an impromptu concert venue. Their combat intelligence is attempting to reboot, Reeves reported. It seems our unusual approach has caused some logical conflicts in their decision trees. Wilson straightened in his chair as Thunderstruck reached its final. Time for the encore. Execute pattern jazz. The drone swarm suddenly consolidated into 7 distinct formations, each one moving according to a different musical genre. Classical orchestral patterns on the left flank, jazz improvisation on the right, rock and roll up the middle. The Council fleet's attempts to target them became increasingly erratic as their systems tried to predict the unpredictable. Council ships are breaking formation, Santos announced with satisfaction. Their combat intelligence has identified 47,000 possible tactics we might be using and can't decide which one is real. That's because they're all real, Wilson responded, watching as the Council fleet scattered before their musical assault. And none of them. Sometimes the best pattern is no pattern at all. A final transmission came through from the Council flagship. This violation of established combat protocols will be reported to the High Command. Wilson couldn't help but laugh. Send our response, Chen. Keep it classic. Chen's fingers flew across her console, transmitting a simple message. Rules are made to be broken. And by the way, the concert's free. As the Council fleet retreated in disarray, Wilson looked at his crew with pride. They had just proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology. It was their ability to turn combat into art, to find beauty in chaos, and to remind the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win wasn't to overpower your opponent, but to completely redefine the rules of engagement. Communications Officer Rachel Martinez sat cross-legged in her command pod, surrounded by swirling holographic data streams. Her neural interface hummed as she prepared the most important broadcast of her career. Behind her, Captain Drake stood silently, watching as she wove together the complex transmission package. "Everything's ready, sir," she reported, her fingers dancing through the light streams. "Though I still think this might cause a panic." Drake's reflection smiled in her display. Sometimes panic is exactly what's needed to wake people up. Begin the transmission. Martinez took a deep breath and activated all frequencies simultaneously. The ship's quantum arrays powered up, pushing their signal through subspace channels the Council didn't even know existed. "This is Communications Officer Rachel Martinez of the Earth vessel Stellar Phantom," she began, her voice calm and clear. "What follows is not a threat, but a gift. A wake-up call. And most importantly, a truth the Council has tried to hide." With practiced precision, she began releasing carefully selected technical specifications into the public data sphere. Schematics for the Phantom's adaptive hull technology, details of their quantum displacement drive, blueprints for their micro-drone control systems, each revelation more impossible than the last. These innovations weren't created in isolation. She continued, watching as her transmission spread across the sector. Each breakthrough represents collaboration with species the Council deemed primitive or unready. The Centaurians contributed their crystal computing matrices. The Vega Collective shared their quantum entanglement theories. The Proxima Republic helped perfect our stealth systems. The Council's emergency override protocols tried to block her signal, but Martinez had anticipated this. Each attempt to silence the transmission only caused it to fragment and multiply, sprouting new data streams through every available channel. For 30 years, while the Council watched our solar system, humanity reached out to other protected species, she explained, launching the next data package. We shared knowledge freely, collaborated without restrictions, and proved that innovation knows no hierarchy. Lieutenant Daniel Parker, their science officer, stepped into her command pod with a tablet displaying incoming response metrics. "It's working," he reported excitedly. "We're getting acknowledgement signals from at least 20 different species. They're confirming the collaborative projects." Martinez nodded, moving to the next phase. Her neural interface projected personal logs, research journals, and diplomatic records. Evidence of hundreds of secret joint ventures that had flourished under the Council's nose. "To those watching," she broadcast, "what you're seeing isn't just technical data. It's proof that the Council's restrictions aren't protection. They're chains. They claim technological advancement must be carefully controlled, metered out to worthy species. We've proven otherwise." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Civilian channels across 3 sectors erupted with discussion. Trading hubs that had quietly dealt in human-inspired tech began openly broadcasting their inventories. Underground research networks suddenly went public, sharing their own breakthroughs. "The Council's primary defense grid is attempting to trace our signal," Parker warned, studying his readings. "They're trying to identify our collaborators." Martinez allowed herself a small smile. Let them try. Every attempt to track us releases another layer of data. I've embedded our entire technological history in recursive packets. The harder they work to stop us, the more they reveal to everyone watching. Captain Drake placed a hand on her shoulder. Send the final package. With a nod, Martinez activated the last transmission sequence. This one was different. Not technical schematics or collaboration records, but a simple message repeated in every known language. Innovation is not a privilege to be earned, but a right to be exercised. The Council's age of technological gatekeeping is over. To every species watching, what you've seen today isn't just our technology, it's your potential. We didn't bypass the Council's restrictions through superior weapons or computing power. We did it by reaching out to each other, by sharing knowledge freely, by proving that true advancement comes from collaboration, not control. As the message echoed across the sector, Martinez watched her display light up with thousands of response signals. Species that had never dared to communicate directly were suddenly sharing their own innovations, their own breakthroughs, their own dreams of unrestricted progress. Transmission complete, she reported softly. The galaxy is awake, sir. Drake's reflection nodded. And now they know they're not alone. Brigadier General Kevin Thompson watched from his hidden command center as decades of careful planning finally bore fruit. The massive underground facility, buried beneath the crystalline deserts of Proxima Beta, hummed with activity as operators from 12 different species coordinated the largest technological unveiling in galactic history. Status report, he commanded, his voice carrying across the cathedral-like chamber. Major Isabella Rodriguez, his second-in-command, projected a holographic map showing spreading waves of communication across Council space. The Phantom's broadcast was the trigger we needed, sir. All sleeper cells are going active. Trading hubs in sectors 7 through 15 are now openly displaying human hybrid technology. Thompson allowed himself a small smile. And the Council's response? Exactly as predicted, Rodriguez replied, zooming in on several locations. They're trying to shut down the hubs, but their enforcement ships are encountering technical difficulties. On the main display, Council vessels found their systems mysteriously malfunctioning. Security protocols that had worked flawlessly for centuries suddenly failed. Emergency overrides triggered cascading shutdowns instead of restores. 30 years of placing our people in maintenance and upgrade positions, Thompson mused. Amazing what you can accomplish when no one thinks you're worth watching. A new alert flashed across the screens. Lieutenant Commander Maya Chen, their technology integration specialist, quickly brought up the details. Sir, the Centaurian Defense Fleet just declared independence from Council oversight. They're activating the hybrid shield systems we helped them develop. Right on schedule. Thompson nodded. Send the recognition codes. Let's show them they're not alone. Across Council space, supposedly primitive species began revealing technological advances that should have been impossible. The Vega Collective unveiled quantum communication networks that bypassed Council monitoring. The Proxima Republic demonstrated energy systems that made them entirely self-sufficient. Message from the Stellar Phantom, Rodriguez announced. Captain Drake says, the spotlight is yours, old friend. Thompson straightened his uniform. Time for Phase 2. Maya, activate the public channels. Let's show the galaxy what real cooperation looks like. The command center's communication array powered up, broadcasting on frequencies the Council couldn't block because they didn't know they existed. Thompson's image appeared on screens across hundreds of worlds. To all species watching, he began, I am Brigadier General Kevin Thompson of Earth's Special Operations Division. For 3 decades, we've worked in secret with those the Council deemed unworthy of advancement. Today, we stand together to prove them wrong. Behind him, massive doors opened to reveal warehouses filled with hybrid technology, innovations created by combining the unique perspectives and abilities of multiple species. These achievements weren't stolen or copied, he continued. They were created through true collaboration, When the Council restricted us to our solar system, we didn't isolate ourselves. We reached out. We shared. We learned. And most importantly, we listened. Screens around the command center showed the impact of his words. Council enforcement vessels retreating from suddenly well-defended systems. Trading hubs transforming into technology exchange centers. Underground research networks emerging into the light. "Sir," Chen called out, "the Arcturus Consortium is transmitting their database of medical breakthroughs. Treatments combining human genetic research with their bioengineering. The Sirius Alliance is sharing their advancements in quantum mechanics," Rodriguez added. "They're crediting their breakthrough to studying human music theory, of all things." Thompson watched as the carefully maintained walls between species crumbled. Each revelation encouraged others to step forward, creating a cascade of shared knowledge that the Council couldn't hope to contain. "Incoming transmission from the Council chamber," Chen reported, trying to hide her amusement. "They're demanding we cease this unauthorized technological proliferation immediately." "Send them our standard response," Thompson smiled. Rodriguez typed quickly, "Innovation knows no hierarchy. Catch up or step aside." In the following hours, reports flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had quietly collaborated with humans emerged from the shadows, proudly displaying achievements that defied Council restrictions. The careful balance of power that had maintained Council control for centuries was unraveling thread by thread. "Sir," Rodriguez said softly, "I think we just changed everything." Thompson watched the streams of data showing a galaxy awakening to its true potential. "No, Major, we just reminded everyone that change was always possible. They did the rest themselves." Tactical Officer Olivia Blackwood stood before the hastily assembled Council emergency session, her holographic presence towering over the gathered representatives. Behind her, complex data streams showed something approaching from the galactic core, something that made the Council's most advanced detection systems scream in protest. 6 months ago, she began, her voice steady despite the gravity of her presentation. "Our deep space monitoring network detected an anomaly. At first, we thought it was a sensor malfunction. We were wrong." The holographic display shifted, showing a massive distortion in spacetime, approaching at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. Council members murmured in disbelief as their own instruments confirmed the readings. "This is why we came." Captain Drake's voice filled the chamber as his image materialized beside Blackwood's. "Not to challenge your authority, but to prepare the galaxy for what's coming." Representative Zixtel rose from their crystalline throne, mandibles clicking in agitation. "You expect us to believe this conveniently timed threat? That your rebellion was somehow preparation?" Blackwood's fingers danced through the light, expanding the sensor data. "Every action we took had a purpose. The ghost ship demonstrations. Testing new stealth technologies we'll need to survive. The drone swarms. Prototype autonomous defense systems. Even our apparent defiance of your combat protocols was meant to prove that rigid, predictable responses won't work against what's coming." The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as she overlaid the anomaly's projected path with their recent journey through Council space. Every system they'd provoked lay directly in the threat's path. "Dr. Emily Sullivan, our Chief Science Officer, please explain what we're facing," Drake commanded. A new hologram appeared, showing a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and intense eyes. "The entity approaching us appears to be a quantum-level consciousness. It doesn't just exist in normal space. It manipulates the fundamental forces of reality itself. Our analysis suggests it's ancient, possibly predating the formation of our galaxy." She gestured, and the display showed simulation after simulation of conventional weapons failing against the anomaly. "Council technology, advanced as it is, follows predictable patterns. This entity feeds on patterns. It consumes them, learns from them, and grows stronger. We've tracked its path through 3 neighboring galaxies. None of them survived contact." Commander James Wilson stepped forward, adding his own hologram to the growing presentation. This is why we had to break your restrictions on technological development. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology. It's our adaptability. Our ability to take different approaches, to combine ideas in ways that shouldn't work but somehow do. And we're not the only ones. The display shifted again, showing the collaborative projects they'd sparked across Council space. Every species you restricted brought something unique to the table. The Centaurians' crystal computing could detect quantum fluctuations we never dreamed of. The Vega Collective's theoretical models helped us understand how the entity thinks. The Proxima Republic's energy systems might be our only chance to power the defenses we'll need. And you appointed yourselves the saviors of the galaxy. Zixtal demanded, but their voice held less certainty now. No, Drake replied softly. We appointed ourselves the wake-up call. The entity isn't just coming for Earth or the Council. It's coming for all of us. And the only way we survive is together, combining our knowledge and abilities in ways your restrictions never allowed. Blackwood took control of the display one final time, showing the entity's estimated time of arrival. We have 3 months before first contact. Every moment we waste arguing about authority and protocol is a moment we could be preparing. You've seen what we can accomplish in secret, working with limited resources and hidden channels. Imagine what we could do together, openly, with full cooperation. The Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Years of carefully maintained hierarchy and control balanced against the extinction-level threat approaching their galaxy. High Counselor Venra, ancient even by Council standards, rose slowly from their seat. You could have simply told us this threat existed. Why risk everything with your demonstrations and rebellion? Would you have believed us? Drake asked simply. Or would you have dismissed it as another primitive species crying wolf? We had to show everyone, that the impossible was possible, that your assumptions about technological development, about species hierarchy, about what can and cannot be done, they're all just patterns. And patterns can be broken. The High Counselor studied the approaching anomalies data for a long moment. It seems, Captain Drake, that humanity has taught us a valuable lesson about underestimating the primitive. Fleet Admiral Elizabeth Stone's boots echoed against the crystalline floor of the transformed Council chamber, where once strict hierarchical platforms had separated species by rank and status. Now a sprawling collaborative workspace buzzed with unified purpose. Representatives from hundreds of worlds worked side by side, their combined knowledge projected in intricate holographic displays that filled the vast space. Status report, she commanded, approaching the central command hub where Captain Drake and the Council's High Command had established their joint operations center. The Centaurian crystal matrices are successfully interfacing with vegan quantum processors, reported Dr. Sullivan, her hands dancing through multiple holographic readouts. We're achieving computation speeds that were theoretically impossible 3 months ago. Stone nodded, watching as species that had once been forbidden to even communicate were now seamlessly combining their technologies. And the defense grid. Better than we hoped, Commander Wilson chimed in, projecting a tactical display. The Proximan energy systems are powering shield configurations designed by the Arcturus engineers, all coordinated through human-designed chaos algorithms. The entity won't be facing predictable patterns. It'll be dealing with constantly evolving defensive systems that learn and adapt in real time. The chamber's main display showed the approaching quantum anomaly, now less than a week from their space. Its massive form distorted reality itself, but the combined sensor networks of 30 different species were tracking its every fluctuation. High Counselor Venra approached, their ancient eyes holding a new spark of energy. Admiral Stone, your species has transformed our civilization more in 3 months than we managed in 3 centuries. I find myself wondering what else we missed in our arrogance. We all missed something, Stone replied diplomatically. Humans missed chances to learn from your experience. Other species missed opportunities to share their unique perspectives. The real transformation wasn't technological. It was learning to see each other as equals. The chamber's atmosphere shifted as warning indicators flashed. Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice carried across the space. Energy spike detected. The entity is accelerating. Stone straightened, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. This is the moment we've prepared for. All defense networks. Activate. All ships, battle positions. Remember your training. Unpredictability is our ally. The combined fleet of the newly formed Galactic Alliance moved into position. Ships of every design and origin formed fluid, ever-changing patterns. Traditional council vessels flew alongside experimental human crafts, their crews linked through hybrid communication systems that defied conventional physics. "Admiral," Drake called out, "the entity is attempting to establish quantum resonance with our defensive grid." "Just as we predicted," Stone smiled. "Execute Protocol Symphony." Across the fleet, crews from different species began implementing strategies that would have seemed insane just months ago. Council ships abandoned their rigid formations, instead moving to the chaotic rhythms of human music. Experimental weapons combined technologies in ways that created unpredictable energy patterns. Each defensive system operated on different principles, presenting the entity with an ever-changing puzzle it couldn't solve. "It's working," Dr. Sullivan announced excitedly. "The entity can't establish a consistent lock on our patterns because there are no patterns to lock onto." Stone watched as the massive quantum consciousness encountered organized chaos for the first time in its ancient existence. Every attempt it made to analyze and adapt to their defenses was met with new combinations, new approaches, new impossibilities. "All ships," she commanded, "initiate final phase. Show this entity why diversity is strength." The chamber erupted in coordinated activity as the combined knowledge and creativity of hundreds of species was brought to bear. The entity that had consumed 3 galaxies found itself facing something entirely new, a civilization that had turned unpredictability into an art form. As the battle unfolded, High Counselor Venra turned to Stone. "Whatever happens next, humanity has given us something precious, a reminder that true strength lies not in control, but in cooperation, not in restriction, but in freedom to innovate." Stone watched as human ingenuity, council wisdom, and the unique perspectives of countless primitive species combined to defend their galaxy. "We didn't come to conquer or to rule," she replied, echoing the words that would be remembered for generations. "We came to remind the galaxy that the strongest shields are built from trust, and the most powerful weapons are the bonds between equals." The quantum entity loomed before them, ancient and powerful. But for the first time in its existence, it faced a galaxy united not by force or fear, but by the simple truth humanity had spent 30 years proving. Together, nothing was impossible.